She shattered the alien champion's blade, then sat beside him until he woke up. The translator said I volunteered. I was on my third cup of something the station called coffee when the Galcom unit at the front of the room lit up green and the lead diplomat, Dr. Owen Price, turned and looked at the military escort like we were a buffet menu, and he was very, very hungry. Nobody moved. The Vreth High Commander was still standing, 12 feet of bioluminescent alien patients wearing thin, his skin poolsing a slow, deep blue that the cultural briefing packet described as elevated ceremonial expectation, and that I personally read as someone about to stop being polite. He had already repeated the Korath challenge twice. The Galcom Mark IV translator, which rendered Vreth's speech with all the grace of a foghorn falling down a staircase, had turned both repetitions into the same flat sentence: choose your champion or forfeit the corridor. 6 months. 6 months of this table, this room, this coffee that tasted like a parking garage after rain. I was looking at a crack in the summit table, hairline fracture running from the far corner toward the center. Someone had patched it with sealant that did not match the color of the table. It was a small, imperfect repair. I kept thinking about whoever did that, whether they were tired, whether they knew it would hold. I was still thinking about them when Owen said my name. Not as a question, not as an order. He said it the way men say things when they want someone else to make a decision they do not want to be responsible for making themselves. I looked up from the crack in the table. 20 Vreth delegates on one side, their bioluminescence cycling through colors I had no briefing notes on. 4 humans on the other side, none of them volunteering. One cracked table between us, and a diplomatic corridor worth 60% of our supply line hanging somewhere above it, all like a piñata nobody wanted to swing at. Fine by me, I said. The Galcom rendered it. The Vreth High Commander's skin shifted from deep blue to a sharp, sudden gold. Owen looked like someone had just informed him that the floor was, in fact, lava. LT. Nina Farrow, standing to my left, turned to me slowly with a look that had 6 distinct layers to it, and all of them said the same thing, which was, "Are you completely out of your mind?" I said nothing. The answer was probably yes. Owen moved fast. He had me in the corridor outside the summit chamber before the Vreth had formally accepted, which they had already done because the Galcom translation of "fine by me" had apparently carried exactly the right weight in both directions. Cole, he said, he was a thin man, conference room thin, the kind of person buildings were designed for. Sir, you understand what Korath is? Ritual single combat, one-on-one, pre-industrial grade weapons. I paused. I've done dumber. He stared at me with the expression of a man desperately searching for evidence that I was joking. He did not find any. Their champion is Vekath. He has not lost a single Korath challenge in 43 recorded contests. 43, Cole, going back 20 years. I thought about the crack in the table, the mismatched sealant, the person who fixed something they knew might not hold and fixed it anyway. There is a first time for everything, I said. It was not a heroic thing to say. It was just the thing that came out when I was too tired to reach for anything better. Owen pinched the bridge of his nose with 2 fingers and held it there. The border corridor opens 3 shipping lanes, 60% reduction in supply transit time. If we lose this negotiation, we are back to nothing. 6 months of talks erased. I know. You said fine by me. I know. He looked at me for a long time, the kind of look that is trying to work out whether a person is genuinely fearless or just very, very empty in a way that looks similar from the outside. I had stopped being able to tell the difference in myself a while back. Somewhere around the Vreth crossing, somewhere in the 4 hours I spent on a deck that should have held 12 and held only 1. You have 12 hours, Owen said. The ritual begins at dawn station time. I will arrange whatever equipment access you need. He went back inside. I stood in the corridor. Nina came out 2 minutes later. She had been my field partner for 2 years, and she had a particular gift for standing next to a person without making them feel like they needed to perform being fine. "You want to tell me what that was?" she said. "Not especially." She leaned against the wall beside me. "The Vreth Bladesworn carry a weapon called the Thrail. It is not just a blade, Marin. It is passed through the champion's lineage. Generational. Sacred. Vekath's Thrail is 400 years old. It has a name of its own in their cultural record." I looked at my hands. "I appreciate the briefing. I am trying to make sure you know what you are walking into." "I know what I am walking into." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you actually want to do this, or are you doing the thing again?" "What thing?" She gave me a look. She knew what thing. She had been standing beside me for long enough to know the difference between Marin Cole making a decision and Marin Cole not caring enough to make a different one. They looked the same from 10 feet away. Up close, they were nothing alike. "Get some sleep," I said. She stayed beside me for another full minute without speaking. Then she went back inside. I stood alone in the corridor. The station hummed. A ventilation unit down the hall clicked, cycled, clicked again. I thought about Commander Dale Hurst, my who was going to hear about this and probably lose a year of his life. I thought about the Vreth crossing. I thought about Priya Anand and the way the deck had felt under my hands and the particular quality of silence that exists when you are the only one left in a room that was not built for one person. I went to my bunk. I put my boots on the floor. I stared at the ceiling for 11 hours and 20 minutes. I did not sleep. I thought about a crack in a table and the person who fixed it badly and still fixed it. I thought about that for a long time. When the alarm came, I was already standing. The arena did not look like anything I had a word for. It was carved from something older than the station, the kind of stone that has been weight-bearing long enough to feel permanent in a way that buildings do not. Open at the top, ringed with tiered seating that climbed in concentric circles until the uppermost rows were lost in the pale station light. It held 20,000 Vreth, and not one of them was making a sound. That was the thing nobody told me about. The silence before Korath. 20,000 beings capable of a chest resonance hum that could vibrate the stone under your boots, and all of them holding it. The quiet had texture. It pressed against my ears like depth pressure, like being underwater and knowing the surface is somewhere above you but not seeing it. I had fought in 3 wars. I had been in rooms where the air had weight. This was different. This was 20,000 people saving their breath for something. Then Vekath entered from the far archway, and I understood why. He was not the largest Vreth I had seen. He was not the most visually striking. What he was complete. Every part of him moved in the same direction at the same time with no wasted motion, the way very few living things ever move, the way things move when they have been doing one thing for so long that the doing of it is no longer separate from the being of it. He carried the Thrail at his side and did not hold it the way a person holds a weapon. He held it the way a person holds a hand. His bioluminescence was white gold, steady, not pulsing. The 20,000 Vreth began to hum. It started in the upper tiers, low, below hearing range at first, felt through the soles of my boots before my ears caught it. Then it built, tier by tier, until the stone itself was resonating and the air between us had a pressure that was not wind and not sound but something between them. A cathedral organ playing one sustained note, a note that had Vekath's name in it somewhere. I was standing in the center of the arena floor with a standard-issue short blade, lightweight body armor, and an energy bar in my jacket pocket that I had been saving since Tuesday. Nina had asked me in the staging corridor if I wanted anything. I had said no. Then I had asked if she had any snacks. She had looked at me for 3 full seconds before producing the energy bar without comment. Chocolate peanut butter, the good kind. I was not going to eat it before the fight, but knowing it was there mattered in a way I could not fully explain and was not going to try. Vekath stopped 20 feet from me. He drew the thrail. I had been told it was 400 years old, told it had a name, told it had been carried by every blade sworn of his lineage since before my great-grandmother's grandmother was born. Looking at it now, none of that information was necessary. The blade communicated its own history without any of it. The metal had that particular quality that very old things have when they have been used and maintained and used again for long enough that the use is part of the structure. It was not shiny. It was deep. There is a difference. The arena went quiet again, all 20,000 of them holding a single collective breath. Vekath inclined his head. Not a bow, something else. An acknowledgement between two people who are about to do something serious. I nodded back. Then he moved, and I stopped thinking in sentences. He was faster than the briefing said. I had read the Korath combat records twice, and adjusted for the likely gap between recorded accounts and reality, and he was still faster than that adjusted number. The first pass I barely cleared by moving into it instead of away, which was less strategy and more the kind of reflex that gets programmed into a body, by doing this long enough that the body starts making decisions before the brain finishes the question. He did not press the advantage the way I expected. He circled, patient. The white-gold bioluminescence did not change. He was not angry. He was not excited. He was doing what he had always done and doing it well and waiting for me to show him what kind of problem I was. I showed him the kind that does not stand still. I did not try to match his reach. At 12 feet versus my 5 feet 7, matching reach was a plan for people who had not thought past the first 30 seconds. I worked inside it, changed direction faster than he could track at full extension, made him turn more than he wanted to. The thrail was long and ceremonial and built for power at distance. Up close, it needed room I was not giving it. The crowd was not humming now, they were watching. I took a hit on my left side that moved me 4 feet sideways and taught me exactly what the phrase structural mass differential means when it is not a phrase anymore but a physical event. My ribs had something to say about it. I told my ribs to hold their comments. He was better than me. That was clear, and I had known it coming in. I was not trying to be better than him. I was trying to find the one thing he had never encountered in 43 Korath challenges, which was someone who was not trying to win by being superior. I was trying to win by being a specific kind of problem. The moment came at the 40-minute mark. He drove forward with the thrail in a committed thrust, full extension, full weight behind it, the kind of move that had ended 43 previous challenges and was going to end this one. The trajectory was perfect. The power behind it was extraordinary. There was no defensive answer to it that I could execute in the space and time available. So I did not defend. I stepped into it. Into the line of the strike, inside his guard, pressed the flat of the blade against my body armor at the exact point where the metal's stress tolerance was least and my armor's angular resistance was most. Used my own weight and his forward momentum as opposing forces with my shoulder as the fulcrum, and pushed. The sound the thrail made was not loud. It was a single clean note, short and high and final. Then silence. Half the blade was in Vekath's hand. The other half was on the arena floor. 20,000 vreth, making no sound at all. Vekath stood still. His bioluminescence changed for the first time in the entire fight. The white gold dropped away. What replaced it was a dim, low color that I did not have a name for, the color of something going quiet, the color of a candle in the moment after someone cups their hand around it. He looked at the blade in his hand, then at the piece on the floor, then at me. I was still standing. My ribs had a detailed report they wanted to file. I told them later. I looked at the broken piece on the floor, 400 years old, a name of its own, 40 generations of his family's history lying on arena stone. I had done this on purpose. I had chosen this over every other option, and standing here now looking at it, I felt nothing that resembled victory. I picked up the broken piece. I turned it in my hands once. I set it down beside where Vekath was standing, carefully, at his feet, the way you set something down when you know you cannot fix it but you cannot leave it on the floor either. His legs went, not dramatically, just the way a very large thing goes when the thing that was holding it up leaves. He went down to his knees and then sideways and then still. His bioluminescence was dim. But it was there. He was breathing. The arena was completely silent. I was still standing in the middle of it, and I did not know what was supposed to happen next. Nobody told me what happened after. The Galcom earpiece was going. Owen's voice, which had climbed several octaves since the last time I heard it, was saying things in rapid sequence. Cole, you need to. The protocol here is Vekath is down, which means you have to. Cole, are you receiving? I'm receiving, I said. The completion of Korath requires the victor to perform Vethkar. It means the formal end of the challenge. You claim the title. The symbolic Cole you need to. I know what Vethkar means, I said. I had read the briefing packet. Execute the fallen champion. Claim the lineage. Formalize the outcome. Vekath was on the arena floor. His bioluminescence was that low, candle-cupped color. His chest was moving, slow and steady, unconscious, not gone. I looked at him for a moment. Then I sat down. Not dramatically, not making any kind of point. I just lowered myself to the arena floor, cross-legged, directly beside where Vekath was lying, and I sat. Owen's voice went very high, and then very quiet, and then disappeared. I reached into my jacket pocket. I took out the energy bar, chocolate peanut butter. I opened it. I took a bite. The 20,000 Vreth in the stands did not move. I did not look at them. I was watching Vekath breathe, checking the rhythm of it, making sure the pace was steady, that nothing in it sounded wrong. I had done this before in a different place, in a different kind of dark. I knew what steady sounded like. He was steady. I took another bite of the energy bar. The arena stone was cold, colder than ship decking, colder than the staging corridor, the particular cold of something that has been cut from deep ground and has never fully lost that depth. I shifted my position slightly so that I was between Vekath and the primary light source. My shadow fell across his face. I did not know if Vreth were sensitive to direct light when unconscious. I did not know if it mattered. It seemed like the kind of thing that might matter, so I sat where I could block it. The earpiece crackled. Owen again, quieter now. Cole, what are you doing? Sitting, I said. Silence. You are sitting. Yes. Another silence, longer. There is no protocol for this. I know. The Vreth representatives are. They are looking at you, and I cannot read their expressions, and our cultural liaison is telling me he has never seen this response to a Korath outcome, and I need you to tell me what is happening so I can. Nothing is happening, I said. I am sitting next to someone until they wake up. That is all. Owen did not respond for a full 2 minutes. I finished the energy bar. The arena was still quiet. Not the held breath quiet of before the fight. Something different. I did not have a word for it. It was the kind of quiet that forms when a large number of people encounter something they do not have a category for and are too uncertain to react. 20 minutes in, a figure crossed the arena floor toward me. Old by Vreth visual cues, the bioluminescence was slower, the color more settled, the particular stillness of something that has been moving for a very long time and has learned to conserve. He wore different markings than the delegates or the guards, layered, formal without being rigid. He stopped 10 feet from me, looked at Vekath, looked at me. His Galcom translator was a better model than the one in the summit room. When he spoke, the words came out clean. Human, he said, what is the name of this ritual? I looked at him. Sitting with someone, I said. He considered that. We have no record of this rite. It is not a rite. He waited, The question was in the waiting. It is just something people do, I said, when there is nobody else. He looked at me for a long time. His bioluminescence was a color I had not seen before, slow and deep, not readable by any briefing I had been given. I am Sevath, he said, Lorekeeper of the Vreth hegemony. I hold all recorded accounts of Korath across 4 centuries of practice. Marin Cole, I said, I hold one. Something happened in his expression, in the settled lines of it. I did not know the word for it, and the Galcom could not have translated it anyway because it was not language. He went back to the edge of the arena floor. He did not leave. He stood there. I turned back to Veketh. His bioluminescence was the same low, dim color, steady. The breathing was still steady. I had started counting his breaths at some point without deciding to, the way you start counting something when you need to know it is still there. 35 minutes in, I heard a sound from the stands. Not a hum, not a voice. A shift, the physical shift of something large sitting down. I did not look up. I kept watching Veketh breathe. But I heard it happen again, and again, and in longer intervals after that, the quiet sound of something large settling onto stone, repeated, until it was not individual sounds anymore but a pattern, tier after tier of it. I still did not look up. Nina's voice came through the earpiece, very low. Marin. I know, I said. They are sitting down. I know. In the stands, they are Marin, a lot of them are sitting down. I know. A pause, then, do you want me to tell you how many? No, I said. The arena was quiet again. A different kind of quiet than any of the kinds before. 3 kinds of quiet in one fight, and this one had no name I knew either. I watched Veketh breathe. I thought about Priya Anand. I did not let myself think about her directly. I thought around her, the way you think around a light that is too bright to look at straight. I thought about ship decking, the particular weight of 4 hours, the way a person talks when they are running out of time, the things they say and the things they do not say, and the sound the silence makes between them. I thought about how I had promised myself, in that silence, in that specific dark, that I would never leave anyone alone in it again. Veketh did not know that. It had nothing to do with him personally. He was unconscious on an arena floor, and the promise was older than this room and made to someone who was not here to hear it. But the promise did not care about those distinctions. The promise was simple. You do not leave someone alone in the dark. That is all. The arena stone was very cold. I did not move. He woke up the way people wake when they have been somewhere far down and have a long way back. Not sudden, not dramatic. His fingers moved first, the hand closest to me, the slow return of voluntary motion working its way up from the smallest joints outward. Then his chest changed rhythm. Then his bioluminescence shifted, lifting from that dim candle color towards something with more heat in it, not back to the white gold of before, but somewhere between, the color of early morning when the light has arrived but the day has not started yet. His eyes opened on the ceiling first, then moved across the arena above him slowly, then came to the broken blade piece on the floor, 6 inches from his hand. He looked at it for a long time. I did not say anything. I had been sitting here for an hour and a half by the station clock in my earpiece, and I had learned in the first 10 minutes that the correct thing to do when someone wakes up in a hard place is give them the time to find out what they are before you make them deal with you. He was quiet, breathing, looking at the ceiling, looking at the blade piece, looking at nothing with his eyes, which meant looking at something with his mind. Then he said, "You stayed." The Galcom in his chest unit rendered it in a voice that was flatter than his actual voice, the way all translations are a size smaller than the original. But the words came out clean. "Lord have mercy," I said to no one in particular. "He speaks Galcom." "Basic curriculum," he said. There was a pause. All champions must complete diplomatic language training before. He stopped. The word champions cost him something on the way out. I heard it cost him. I did not help him with it. Some things a person has to carry past the hard part themselves. He turned his head and looked at me. His bioluminescence was that in-between color, the early morning one. You stayed, he said again. Different emphasis this time, not confirmation, something else. Yes, I said. He looked at the ceiling, then back at the blade piece. His hand moved toward it, stopped, withdrew. In Korath, he said slowly, working through Galcom carefully the way a person works through a language they know but do not live in, the victor leaves the field, either after Vethkar or in cases of mercy, immediately after the fall. The field is the fallen champion's space. It has always been this. I know, I said. You did not leave. No. A long pause. His bioluminescence changed slightly. A slow pulse in it now, not fast, not anxious, just present. Why, he asked. He was looking at me directly now. Not a performance question. Not a cultural inquiry for diplomatic records. A real question from one person to another with no category around it. I almost deflected. I felt the deflection forming, the exact shape of it, something dry and Midwestern and self-contained that would answer the question without answering it, and let us both move past it safely. I did not say it. Because I know what it feels like when no one does, I said. I did not add to it. That was all of it that I could give in one sentence, and I had given all of it. He was quiet. His bioluminescence pulsed twice slowly and then settled. There were 20,000 of my kind in this arena, he said. Yes, I said, I noticed. He understood what that meant. I saw him understand it, saw the understanding move through his bioluminescence in a wave that was too quiet for the size of what it was, that the number did not change it. That presence is not a count. We were both quiet for a while. Nina's voice came through the earpiece. I ignored it. Owen's voice came through after it. I said Cole offline for 2 minutes and switched the audio down. The Thrail, Veketh said finally. His voice was different on that word. Lower, closer. I know, I said. How long it was carried? 400 years, I said. Your grandfather's grandfather's grandfathers. He looked at me. You know this. Seveth told me before the fight. Seveth told a human champion the history of the Thrail. He told me what I was breaking, I said. His bioluminescence went very still, and you broke it anyway. It was the only way. Yes, he said, it was. Another quiet. The arena around us was not entirely silent anymore. There were sounds from the stands, not the humming, just the ordinary sounds of a very large number of beings sitting somewhere and being present. I had not looked up to count them. I still did not. My name is Veketh Tel Sara, he said. The Tel is lineage designation. Sara is the name of the line. Marin Cole, I said. No lineage designation, just the one name attached to whoever I happen to be at the moment. Something happened at the corners of his expression. I did not know if Vreth had the same facial mechanics as humans for what I thought I was seeing, but what I thought I was seeing was the start of something warmer than what had been there before. The blade, he said. We both looked at the broken piece on the floor between us. Neither of us touched it. It cannot be reforged, he said. The Thrail's alloy is a process that died with the Forge family of Sora 300 years ago. There is no replacing it. I know, I said. I had known this before I broke it. That information had been in the briefing packet too, filed under cultural considerations. And I had read it twice and broken the blade anyway because there had been no other choice, and knowing something is irreplaceable does not always give you a different option. You knew, he said. Yes. And you set the piece beside me. Yes. He was quiet. His bioluminescence had shifted again. Deeper now, a color I was starting to be able to read without the cultural briefing packet. Warm, complex, the color of something trying to hold more than one thing at once. He reached out, one hand moving slowly, the deliberate slowness of someone giving you time to see what they are doing. He picked up the broken piece of the thrail from the floor. He held it for a moment, turned it once, then he placed it in my open palm. Not handing it back, not returning it, placing it, setting it down in my hand the way you set something down in a place where you want it to stay. I looked at it, then at him. "I do not know the Galcom word for what this means," he said. "In my language the word requires a full phrase. It means, this piece now belongs to the story that includes you." I held the broken piece of the thrail in my hand. It was heavier than it looked. "I am going to need a better pocket," I said. The sound he made was something I had never heard from a Vreth in any briefing, any recording, any archived summit footage. It started low in his chest and worked its way out, and it took me a full 3 seconds to recognize it because I had not known Vreth could make it. He was laughing. Not the polite kind, not the diplomatic kind, the real kind. The kind that sounds the same in every language in every system, across every species that has ever sat on a cold floor with someone they did not expect to be sitting with. I held the piece of the thrail, and I did not smile because I was Marin Cole from rural Ohio, and smiling first was not my way. But I was close. 3 days later, new summit room. Same terrible coffee, which I had decided was a universal diplomatic constant, like the speed of light or the certainty that someone in any given meeting would bring up the timeline. The Galcom translator had been upgraded. A better model. 2 humans had lost their jobs over the previous one, which was not funny and also a little bit funny in the way that only very tired people find things funny. I was present because the Vreth had specifically requested me. The formal request had been filed under my new diplomatic designation, which was the sitting woman. Commander Dale Hurst had read this designation 3 times before calling me into his office and sitting across from me without speaking for 45 seconds, which was his version of expressing complex emotion. "Sir," I said. "Cole," he said. "I can explain." "I do not think," he said very carefully, "that you can." I could not actually. So we sat in his office for another 30 seconds, and then he signed the authorization form, and that was that. The new summit room had a different table. I noticed the crack in it within 4 minutes of sitting down. Different location than the last one, running along the near edge, sealed with the same mismatched sealant as before. I kept looking at it during the opening formalities, the way I always looked at cracks in tables when rooms got too large and too quiet and too full of stakes. Seveth spoke first. He was seated directly across from me, which had not been arranged in the pre-summit layout and had been arranged by the time everyone sat down, which told me something about how Seveth operated. "Sergeant Cole," he said, his Galcom was formal and clear. "Before the negotiations resume, there is a matter of record I am obligated to address." "All right," I said. In the 412 years of recorded Korath, no victor has ever remained on the field after the fall of the opposing champion. Not in mercy, not in ceremony, not in any documented form. He paused. "What you did in that arena has no precedent in our written history." I looked at the crack in the table. "I sat on a floor," I said. "Yes," Seveth said. "What you call sitting on a floor, 300 Vreth in the arena stands replicated within the first hour. By the time the champion Vekath regained consciousness, 1100 were seated. Not in ritual, not in performance. In replication. They saw something they did not have a word for and they reproduced it because that is what living things do when they encounter something true." Owen beside me had stopped taking notes. He was staring at Seveth. Nina, on my other side, was staring at me. I was looking at the crack in the table. Since the arena recording was distributed through hegemony channels, Sevath continued, we have received cultural inquiry transmissions from 14 Vreth population centers. Our philosophical council has convened 3 emergency sessions. The footage has been flagged by monitoring stations from 4 independent species observing this summit. Owen made a sound, a small, involuntary sound, the kind that escapes when a person's brain processes a number and the number is larger than the brain was prepared for. I thought not my circus. I was absolutely in the circus. Sergeant Cole, Sevath said, and his voice changed, the way a voice changes when it is carrying something it has been holding for a while and is finally setting it down. In our sacred language, a language that has not added a new word in 600 years, the Lorekeeper Council has voted to add one. The room was very quiet. It is a long phrase in Vreth, he said. The Galcom approximation is this, the act of remaining beside a fallen thing that is not yet finished. I looked up from the crack in the table. Sevath looked back at me. His bioluminescence was that deep-held color I had seen in the arena when he first approached me, the one I could not name from any briefing. That is a long word, I said. It is a large concept, he said. The room was quiet again. I became aware that every person and every Vreth in the summit chamber was looking at me and waiting for a response that matched the size of what had just been said. I looked at the crack in the table. I thought about the person who fixed it, the mismatched sealant. The decision to repair something you know is not going to hold perfectly because the table still needs to hold, because there are still people sitting at it trying to fix something, and they need the surface under them even if the surface is not whole. I thought about Priya Anand, not around her this time, directly at her, the way you can sometimes look at a bright thing directly after you have been standing in the same room with it long enough that the brightness becomes familiar. I thought about 4 hours on a deck. I thought about the promise. I did not say any of that. I was not going to say any of that in a summit room. I would like to negotiate the border corridor, I said. Sevath's bioluminescence shifted, that warm, complex color from the arena, Vekath's color when he placed the broken blade in my hand. As would we, Sevath said. The next 4 hours were some of the most technically detailed diplomatic proceedings I had ever observed from 6 inches away, because Owen was doing the actual negotiating, and I was sitting beside him as the sitting woman, which was a designation that apparently carried significant weight in Vreth diplomatic culture and zero official function in human diplomatic protocol, and Commander Hurst had signed the form anyway. The corridor was agreed upon in full. 3 shipping lanes, 60% transit reduction, shared maintenance responsibility on the border relay stations, a cultural exchange clause that no one at the table had expected, and everyone agreed to within 20 minutes because Sevath had drafted it overnight, and it was, by any measure, a good clause. Owen looked like a man who had just watched 6 months of stalled talks resolve in 4 hours, and was not entirely sure which part of reality had changed. I knew which part. Nothing had changed, that was the thing. The corridor was the same corridor it had been 6 months ago. The shipping lanes were the same lanes. The numbers were the same numbers. What had changed was not the terms. What had changed was a word in a language that had not added one in 600 years. After the session, the lead diplomat from the Vreth side paused beside me on the way out. Not Sevath. A younger delegate, someone I had not spoken to before, his bioluminescence a bright, curious color. I watched the arena recording, he said. His Galcom was accented careful. I watched it 4 times. All right, I said. I do not understand, he said, why you stayed. I thought about giving him a diplomatic answer. I thought about giving him a cultural exchange answer. I thought about saying something that would look good in a report. Because it costs nothing to stay, I said, and it costs everything not to. He looked at me for a moment. His bioluminescence did a slow, full pulse. He inclined his head and walked out. Owen appeared at my shoulder. His voice was the lowest I had heard it in 3 days. "Cole, what you did in that arena, what happened after, it is being transmitted, not just through hegemony channels. The 4 independent species that were monitoring this summit flagged it. Their diplomatic archives flagged it. Scholars are requesting access to the arena footage." He paused. "There is a word for this, what you accidentally started." "I ate a snack on a cold floor," I said. "Tell the scholars good luck." "Marin." I looked at him. "Historic," he said, quietly, like the word weighed something. I looked at the crack in the new table, the sealant that did not match, the small, imperfect repair that held the table together well enough for people to sit at it and do the work that needed doing. I poured the terrible coffee into a cup that was not mine. "I will need a better title than sitting woman," I said. Owen stared at me. Then, for the first time in 3 days, he laughed. Vekath was at the exit when I left the summit room. He had not been in the session. He was waiting in the corridor the way large things wait when they have learned patience, which is without performing it. He did not speak. I did not speak. He put his fist against his chest and held it there. Not the Korath salute. Not any gesture in the cultural briefing packet. Something else. Something that had been decided between the time he placed the blade piece in my hand and now, in the private language of what had happened between 2 people on a cold arena floor. I nodded. He lowered his hand. I walked down the corridor. The broken piece of the thrail was in my jacket pocket, a better pocket than before. Nina had found it for me, a reinforced interior pocket in a field jacket, deep enough that the piece sat flat against my ribs. I had asked her where she found it. She had said she had ordered it specifically, which was the most Nina thing she had ever done, and I had not thanked her because we did not do that, and also because the thank you was not big enough for the gesture. At the end of the corridor, I stopped. I did not turn around. I thought about a crack in a table, and a person who fixed it badly and still fixed it. I thought about 20,000 beings sitting down on cold stone because they saw something true and did not have a word for it yet, and reached for it anyway, the way living things reach for warmth before they understand the physics of it. I thought about Priya Anand, directly, the way you can only do when enough time has passed and enough good things have happened, and the brightness is finally a warmth you can stand inside instead of a light you have to look away from. I sat on a floor and ate a snack and held a piece of broken metal, and nothing I did was brave or historic or chosen. I was just tired and still standing. And still standing, I had learned, is enough. It turns out it is always enough. Not my circus, I thought. I kept walking. The corridor hummed. The station turned. Somewhere ahead of me, 3 shipping lanes were opening up across a border that had been closed for a long time. I put my hand against my jacket pocket, felt the weight of the blade piece against my ribs. Still there. Still heavy. Still belonging to a story that included me. I kept walking.